At the Fall 2019 NAR convention, the Board of Directors overwhelmingly approved a new policy, an MLS policy called the Clear Cooperation Policy. So in this video, I'll explain exactly what the Clear Cooperation Policy is, how it will impact listing agents, and how much, quite frankly, you're going to get fined for breaking the rules. All of that in this video. Hi everyone, my name is Paul Vacheski. I'm the director of Randall School of Real Estate, and welcome to Randall School's YouTube channel. Hey, do me a favor real quick. Before we get into this video, give this video a thumbs up. Hit that little subscribe button, hit that little notification bell, and leave lots of comments and ask your questions. I would appreciate it. Okay, before I explain exactly what the Clear Cooperation Policy is, I do think it's important to understand the current MLS policy and processes, and then understand a little bit of history about how we got to where we are today with this new policy. Now, most MLS rules require an agent, once they have secured a listing, to input that listing, or at least input that listing data into the MLS within 2 or 3 business days of the list date. But simply inputting the listing into the MLS didn't necessarily mean it was available in an active show status. For example, a listing agent could make the listing active in the MLS but not allow showings to give sellers time to ready the home for the market, or it allowed the agent time to get their marketing stuff ready for the listing. Another scenario might be that the listing was taken by the agent, but the seller, for whatever reason, waived the benefit of the MLS exposure. So it's an active listing from a legal point of view, and the listing agent is allowed to show the property, but it's not in the MLS. Now, this scenario puts the cooperating agent and their clients at a substantial disadvantage to compete for the sale of that property. Then we had the coming soon marketplace, where non-MLS listed properties simply became a business model for listing agents. Now, for those of you who don't know what a coming soon listing is, it's essentially where a listing agent would take a listing, they would place a sign in the yard, but they wouldn't put the information about the listing into the MLS. A property could literally remain on the market for weeks, and cooperating agents and their buyers had absolutely no ability to compete for that sale of the listing because the cooperating agent oftentimes found it difficult or sometimes impossible to obtain any information about the coming soon listing. Then magically, the coming soon listing would have a sold sign in the yard, and then in the MLS, that property would show up as sold. Now, this new policy requires all listings being put into the MLS within 1 business day if, and this is important to understand, if any detail about the listing is made public to any individual outside the listing firm, or the listing is publicly marketed by anyone. This new policy ensures basically MLS cooperation with other MLS members. It's really that simple. Now, I know that most MLSs already have policies in place requiring listing submissions be entered into the MLS typically within 2 or 3 days of the list date. Those policies won't change. But under the new policy, that time frame is shortened to 1 business day if any of those details of the listing is made public or the property is publicly marketed. Now, for clarification purposes, what's a business day? Business days do not include Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays that have been recognized by any state or the federal government. Now, let's talk about MLS compliance. All local MLSs must be compliant with the new policy no later than May 1st, 2020. That is mandated under this rule. Make sure you find out from your local MLS when their compliance date is and if there's any behavior modification processes such as fines for breaking the rules. Now, FYI here, if you're a member of the Great Plains Regional MLS, which is basically Omaha and Lincoln area, the new policy actually goes into effect March 1st, 2020. And folks, the board has implemented some stiff penalties for breaking the rules, and I'm going to discuss that a little bit later in the video. Now remember, the Clear Cooperation Policy has 2 triggers here. If any detail about the listing is made public or the listing is publicly marketed, then the listing broker must ensure that the information about that listing is inputted into the MLS within 1 business day. Now, I want to be clear here. Inputting the listing into the MLS does not mean that it's going to have to go in the active show status. It simply means that the cooperating MLS members must have access to that those listing details. It's really that clear. Okay, so now I want to define what the term public marketing means and discuss what it means when I say details about the listing being made public. Well, public marketing includes everything, and I do mean everything. Yard signs, marketing on public websites, brokerage websites, this includes IDX and VOW feeds, digital communication marketing such as an email blast regarding the listing details, multi-brokerage listing sharing networks that may be available to the brokerage firm, posting it on any social media platform, handing out a flyer about the listing at a county fair, putting a flyer about the property on a church bulletin board, holding an open house, holding a digital open house through Facebook, faxing the details of the listing to the brokerage down the street. The policy is meant to be interpreted very, very broadly here. Let me give you a couple examples that you might see. Let's say you have a coming soon listing. You put the for sale sign in the yard. You would be required under the policy to make the details of that listing available to other MLS members within 1 business day of dropping the sign in the yard. Another example, if you put out an email blast or a social media blast to your sphere of influence or other real estate agents in your community that's not affiliated with your agency, regarding a pocket listing that you have coming up. You have then made the details about that listing public. Now you're required to ensure that that listing is inputted into the MLS within 1 business day of sending your email or making the post. Now there is an exception to this policy. It's very important for agents to know. It's called an office exclusive listing. Now this is where the listing is kept solely within the listing company itself, and it's not marketed to any individual outside that listing firm. The exception was designed to meet some of the concerns that many sellers had about privacy issues, so this exception was incorporated into the new policy. Now, under the office exclusive listing exception, the listing broker is authorized to make known the details about that listing to agents within their firm. And then those agents within that firm are allowed and permitted to then contact on a one-on-one promotion basis the details of that exclusive listing to their direct clients. Now remember, the key here is one-to-one promotion. An individual agent would be permitted to notify, let's say, a buyer that he or she is working with about the details of that listing. However, that same agent would not be permitted to, let's say, send a mass email out to their sphere of influence or make a Facebook post about that listing. Now remember, if anyone in the listing company, including the listing agent or any agent within that listing company, knowingly or unknowingly markets that property or provides any detail regarding that property to any individual outside that listing firm, then the listing broker under the new policy must submit the details to the MLS within 1 business day of the incident. Now I'm going to put a link to NAR's policy down in the comments section in case you want to investigate this a little bit further. Now let's talk about fines. What are the fines for failure to comply with the new policy? Now any behavior modification process or fine will be determined by each individual MLS. However, all MLSs must be in compliance with the new policy no later than May 1st, 2020. As I stated earlier, the Great Plains Regional MLS, which is the Omaha-Lincoln area, the deadline for compliance is March 1st. The fines are stiff, so I thought it'd be appropriate to include the fining system or the fining structure in this video. So let's take a look at what the Great Plains Regional MLS has in store for its members that break the rules. First offense, it's a $100 fine plus a fine of $100 for each additional day of noncompliance once they've been notified by the MLS. Second offense is a $500 fine plus a fine of $100 for each additional day. Third offense is a $1,000 fine plus a fine of $100 for each additional day. And then ultimately the fourth offense, the fine's going to be determined by the Great Plains Regional MLS Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors, they have the ability to fine the member up to a maximum of $15,000. One other thing that's important to remember for you Great Plains Regional MLS members, you get no warning first. First notification you're going to get is the fine. Now I'm going to put a link down below in the comments section to the policy for the Great Plains Regional MLS in case you want to investigate that a little bit further. Now before I end this video, there is one important thing I wanted to address. For you coming soon listing agents, remember this policy does not in any way limit your ability to market your listing in a coming soon status. It simply changes the rules of engagement. The intent of this new policy was not to kill the coming soon marketplace. I know that's what's being alleged out there. I've heard the complaints, but it's simply not true. It was to enhance and ensure member cooperation. That's required under Article 3 of the Realtor Code of Ethics. It's really that simple. Okay, I think that does it for this video. Hey, do me a favor, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, click on that little notification bell, and please share this with your fellow colleagues. Till next time, I hope to see you in class.